Welcome to MonkeyPoo Sports. Today we're talking baseball because the grand old game is upon us. Specifically, we're going to talk about unknown players. So I'm searching through some old cards, a 1989 score set to be specific, and I start to think the same thing that I always think when I'm sifting through mounds of cards, which is the reality of how many common cards there are. I mean, seriously, look at this stack versus the stack of cards I kept. And I purposely over-selected cards worth sleeving. Still, all of these cards, common. Such a terrible thing to call Eric Plunk, Jack Armstrong, and Mike Jackson, or Andres Thomas, Bill Wegman, and Paul Assenmacher. As a Kansas City fan, there's certainly nothing common about Ted Power, Jerry Don Gleaton, or Frank White. Yet still, look at this stack. Hundreds of players whose names we barely remember, if at all. So I thought I might create a tribute to the common player. The Tom, Dick, and Larry, Gary, and Jerry? You see, these are the players that really made the game work while all the stars got the credit. But on the way to doing that story, I found something so profoundly exemplary of the anonymity of the common player that I had to focus the story just a little bit more. And what did I find? Well, this. A Wikipedia link to a list of Major League Baseball players with unidentified given names. That's right, none of these 34 players are associated with any other identifying information than what is listed here. This information was lifted from old newspaper box scores and Sporting Life magazine, and all of it is from 1872 to 1892. None of these players have given first names, and most only played one game. Still, they have box scores, and thus some sort of recorded accomplishment, even if it's only making the box score. After all, if they make the box score, then they played ball in the big leagues, and that is quite an accomplishment. But hold on one second. You see, there is some debate as to whether these players actually were major leaguers. And technically, MLB and the Hall of Fame do not recognize the National Association as a major league. Well, at least 17 of the people on this list played in the National Association. But the National Association is considered the first professional league. The National Association lasted from 1871 to 1875 and was formed in response to concerns that other teams were paying players. Now, sometimes the National Association was referred to as the Amateur Association, and there is some concern over the talent level in the National Association, though there seems to be some consensus amongst historians that the players were likely the best talent that could be found in the era. They folded in 1875 mostly due to the dominance of the league by one team, which was the Boston Red Stockings, and poor business decisions mainly related to location. Many of the teams and players went on to form what would become the National League. In fact, 8 original National Association players went on to become Hall of Famers, including one Albert Spalding. Yes, that Spalding. He played from 1871 to 1878, and get this, he started a trend by wearing a baseball glove. I love baseball. Of course, the National Association only accounted for half of this list. There were 3 other leagues represented: the American Association, the Union Association, and the Players League, represented by Mr. Lewis here, who was a left-handed pitcher that fared far better in the batter's box than he did on the mound. Seriously, that ERA? Ouch. The Union Association lasted one incongruent season and folded. The founder of the league and owner of one of the teams, Henry Rich Guy Lucas, destroyed the competitive balance by buying all the good players. Probably the most notable info I could find was that there were in fact 2 no-hitters pitched and a 19 strikeout performance. That 19 strikeout performance would ultimately be the total that Max Scherzer, Kerry Wood, and Roger Clemens topped. The Players League was another short-lived league. However, this league is far more notable because it consisted of the best players from the National League. It was formed over a labor dispute. Owners did not want to pay the players fairly. Imagine that. The Players League is considered a major league for statistical purposes. However, after a year, the league dissolved back into the National League and the baseball world kept on spinning. The oddest stat from the Players League? 7 triple plays in one season. 7 of them. So for reference, collectively, the Players League, the American Association, and the National League set the record for triple plays this season, a record that still stands at 19. The closest any other season has come is only 11. How the what? Back to the list. Finally, we have the American Association. They lasted for a whopping 10 seasons and actually competed against the National League in what would be the original incarnation of the World Series. Although the American Association folded into the National League after 1891, there are many noteworthy tidbits about this league. First of all, beer. They served alcohol at the games, which was unheard of at the time. The games were also cheaper and sometimes even played on Sundays. Oh my. And again, there's the beer. For real now, every cold brew that you've ever enjoyed at a warm summer baseball game started here. True story. The American Association was actually known as the Beer and Whiskey League, and for that, we are thankful. So now that the history lesson is over, let's get back to the players. 34 men, all professional ball players, if just for one day. 4 of these players were signed by Philadelphia for the last game of the season in 1890. So McBride, Stafford, Sterling, and Swigert landed on this list after playing their first and only game on October 12, 1890. Philadelphia lost the game, and Sporting Life actually reported on the game and the newly acquired pitcher Sterling, stating, "The visitors took kindly to the curves of Sterling." Unfortunately for these 4 local players, the box score reflected their lack of experience. They managed 0 hits, 1 stolen base, and Sterling's kind curves surrendered runs at a rate of 21.6 per inning. Whew. In the very same season, some fella named Lewis made his first and last start for the Buffalo Bisons. He would help set a record that stood for 32 years by allowing 20 runs in 3 innings. Buffalo lost the game 28-16, and Sporting Life reported that Lewis retired to left field, a much disgusted ball tosser, and the Pittsburgh Press called the game one of the greatest slugging matches ever seen since curve pitching came into vogue. Most of these players played in earlier seasons going back to 1872, and although most did only play a single game, some went on to play a few more games. Carolyn Jones, they played in 4 games. Jones managed a .294 batting average, and Carroll matched 4 hits with, 4 errors. Pierce, Quinn, Stoddard, and Sullivan played in 2 games and each managed to get a hit. Sullivan had 3 and 3 RBIs to match. Willis and Scott garnered the most game time with 9 and 13 games respectively. Willis went 5 for 36, while Scott managed 12 hits and is the only player on this list with a home run. McDoulan had the best ERA, and Franklin played good defense, and Mr. Spencer clearly had some butterflies. But more importantly, every one of these players was a teacher and a historian, an inspiration and a hero. They make up the fabric of the great American game that we love, each a thread from a sweater that never unravels, the pioneers, the innovators, and the growing pains of a young league that would grow into our great American pastime. Every game, every unknown player, just a few degrees from a person, player, or event that was transformative for baseball, and every one of them a necessary piece of a much larger picture. So for the Smiths and the Joneses and Mr. Hellings and Higsby, for Macy and McGovern and Willis and Wood, and every comment card in this stack unworthy of a sleeve and unknown to the newest generation of fans, I say thank you for the history lesson. You may be unknown, but you have not been forgotten. And to the Beer and Whiskey League, a huge thank you. July just wouldn't taste the same without you.